again, everyone. It's the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in 2025 as we continue our journey around the world to crown a driver and constructor champion. It is the end of a triple header that has asked so much of teams and drivers, but it's time for one rapid test before we conclude things to conclude the triple header. Sector 1, Sector 2, Sector 3, around a track distance of 6.1 kilometres, 3.8 miles, 50 laps for the Grand Prix, 27 turns for the drivers out there, the highest corner count of the season. It is flat, it is by the sea, and it is a circuit of rhythm and speed required, with the walls very close indeed. It is the C5, the C4 and the C3 tyres available to the drivers in the field across the course of this 5th Grand Prix weekend of the year. We take you to live pictures. Round 5, practice 1, traditional format for the weekend. 3 practice sessions, then an hour of Grand Prix qualifying and 50 laps for the race itself. It is a glorious day to practice around this circuit. Track temperature is up to 50 degrees. We thought it was roasting in Bahrain a week ago. Track temperature is 28, and we're snaking our way through what is a thin circuit. You've got the hairpin at turn 13, and you've got the hairpin at turn 27. In between, plenty of challenges for the drivers out there. A confirmation of the conditions right now. We've had some action already out on the circuit with F2 and F1 Academy, but it is very nearly Formula One's turn. The weather conditions 28 degrees, the track temperature is 50, and we say hello once again alongside me, Alex Jakes. It's a check-in with Jolyon Palmer.
Hello, good afternoon. What a lovely vista of the Red Sea we have to start Formula One around this weekend. It's a great circuit and it's a real high-speed test this weekend for everyone. There we go, lovely shots of the waves rippling in as the peace is about to be broken by Formula One cars. Really looking forward to this. I think there's a few stories really to come out of this one over the course of the weekend. Obviously, can Lando Norris bounce back? Can Oscar Piastri keep turning the screw at the front of the championship? But another one that I'm looking forward to seeing is, can Ferrari get to the pace? It's a smooth circuit in Jeddah, and I think that could allow them opportunities, even if the sort of configuration isn't great for them. I think the smoothness of the track might allow them to run their car in a better window. So I'm eager to look out for that in FP1 here.
Lando Norris is the championship leader. 77 points to Oscar Piastri's 74. Max Verstappen is on 69 points. George Russell moving his way to 4th position and closing in within 6 points. There is the standings on the left-hand side that shows you that Charles Leclerc is in 5th, and it's Antonelli, Hamilton, Albon, Ocon and Stroll. Ocon having a real boom and bust championship. Stroll's scoring done in the first 2 Grand Prix of the year. We've got Pierre Gasly on the board after a really strong run throughout the Bahrain Grand Prix. Hulkenberg scored in the first race of the year. 3 Grand Prix scores for Oliver Behrman, who celebrates the anniversary of his first Super Sub appearance in Formula One, when he became a debutant for Ferrari, the first since the 1970s, and he backed it up with points 1 year ago.
And I'm expecting him and Haas to be a force in the midfield again this weekend. This is a good track for Behrman. He was on pole in Formula 2, but didn't take the start, obviously, with his call-up to Ferrari last year. But for Haas as well, similar to Ferrari, this is a chance where they can really lower the car because of the smooth asphalt. And so you lower the car, you can get the car into a different window, and it may well bring that car more to life as well. They've been a bit hit and miss in terms of pace, but obviously Behrman's somehow managed to scrabble around for consistency at the lower reach of the top 10 and has done a very solid job at the start of this season. Ocon as well, banking some good points.
Talking of a solid job, it is always wonderful to throw to a 2-time Le Mans podium finisher, Mr. Alex Brundle.
Hello, gentlemen. I've managed to find some shade in the pit lane here. Otherwise, I think I'll probably look like a strawberry milkshake by the end of this free practice session. It is really, really hot down here. Interestingly, interested in what you were just saying about the Haas JP. It's gone out of the pit lane absolutely first, with some very clever looking aero rakes underneath the rear of the floor of the first Haas that went out onto the racetrack. Everybody charging out of the pit lane, as you might imagine, but the track this morning has been absolutely miles off the pace. Formula 2 cars earlier on were more than 4 seconds away from where they were in qualifying last year. It's one of the circuits in the year with the highest circuit evolution because it's so dusty, sort of the Bahrain effect here with sand and dust blowing onto the circuit, preventing the tyre from gripping the road. That'll clean up really quickly, but expect to see drivers struggling for the early few laps of this session, and then the track coming to them really, really fast. I'm going to head down the pit lane when they come back in on this first couple of runs and see if we can see some upgrades, but enjoy the first flurry of laps.
Thank you, Alex. We're watching the outlaps on the left-hand side now, full frame, as we make our way to the slightly banked turn 13.
It's a street circuit, isn't it? So it's not used for the rest of the season, unlike most of the others that we've been to so far. Melbourne, obviously, is a sort of quasi street circuit, a park circuit, a temporary track, but we're so used now in Formula 1 to have street circuits on the calendar. It used to be just Monaco, then we had Valencia for a short while, that went as Singapore came, but now we have Baku on the calendar, we have Miami again as a sort of street circuit, Vegas of course, and more coming on the calendar. But this is our first look at this sort of venue this season.
It's Jolyon Palmer. He's going to be talking you through things across the weekend.
We've got massive vibration on the brake.
Okay, stand by. Have a look.
That's Kimi Antonelli. He's got a massive vibration on the brake. And Sam Collins, F1 TV's technical analyst, is standing by to look over all things in these 2 hours of practice.
So I wonder if it's just a little bit of an imbalance side-to-side. It's quite unusual to get a vibration on the front brake so early, so clearly it's not been set up right. Just to follow on what from Jolyon was saying about this circuit, it's a pretty unique street circuit. I think it's the only example I can think of a purpose-built street circuit. So it was built for Formula 1, but it is a street circuit because it is public roads the rest of the year.
But I think we need to define street circuit, because the Miami race it feels like a street circuit to all intents and purposes. There are walls around the whole of it. It's not public streets though, so well we'll dive into that. 56 minutes to go to fully give you the breakdown of that, but I know what you mean, Sam.
Well, the other big thing about this circuit as well, we talked about in the pre-session show, it's the speed of the cars. Now, the peak speed around this circuit isn't actually that high. It doesn't match Monza, Spa, Las Vegas, doesn't even match Baku, which is a very high peak speed at the end of that straight. However, the average speed of this circuit is extremely high. So while the cars don't hit those 360, 365 kph top levels, their average speed, the speed they are travelling around the circuit, is so high that only Monza has a higher average speed throughout the duration of the Grand Prix.
Isaac Hadjar diving out of the way of Lando Norris, who's pushing on nice and early out of the final corner of the racetrack. That's turn 27 as he has the DRS open and takes it to the top of the time page, running a medium tyre right now.
And you get a feel immediately for the speed of this place. It's a busy lap, even though there's long straights. The straights are often arcing, so you're trying to get an eye line for the next corner coming up. You're blasting at such high speed that you're approaching with DRS, especially the second half of the lap, the next corners pretty quickly as well. And as Sam said, it's not actually the highest average speed around the calendar, but it is the highest comfortably on a street circuit. So it's the fastest street circuit in the world. There we go. That buzz line in the first 5 minutes. And it just feels it, doesn't it? Just watching George Russell here on an opening lap in the Mercedes, you just get a sense of the speed around this place through the first sector. That's where there's a really hectic part that we just saw the end of with George sweeping through turns 10, which has been a problem all the way really from turn 4 into 10 is a big sequence. Now we're on the back straight, having gone through the 180-degree bank turn at 13, and now we're into the DRS. But you can see that the eye line for the drivers is not easy, just meandering their way through these turns, swerves really, and then picking a braking point, but it's blind as they come into there. So there's challenges the whole way through. You want to get right up to the walls, inside and out, but of course the jeopardy is there. If you nudge a wall on the inside, it can spit you out on the outside, or the curbs are not easy to take at all angles. So there's a lot to unpack for the drivers.
George Russell now getting very close to the wall very early on. It's one that the drivers relish with the high average speed that Sam and Jolin have been talking about. And he goes into third position, which seems apt considering his season so far. He's been on the podium so far in 3 of the 4 Grand Prix. He has been very, very competitive when it's come to qualifying as well. He's still a man without a contract for next year. And there's high spirits around the circuit. This is down in the paddock. Anytime someone's got a megaphone, it's always a party. Having fun down there.
Want them to pan out and see Laura Winter and Alex Brundle on the far end of it.
You wouldn't rule it out, would you? You would not rule it out. Lock up for Pierre Gasly, driver who had a superlative time of it in Bahrain. Competitive in qualifying, competitive in the Grand Prix. Max Verstappen with a tidy pass on the last lap to deny him a 6th place, but still points on the board and a really strong run across the course of the weekend. You're hearing the exclamation from Jolyon Palmer, because any minor moment mid-corner, like you saw for Lewis Hamilton, can lead to a massive crash around him.
And those are fast corners as well. That's turn 16 for Lewis Hamilton, so it's the first corner that punctuates 3 long straights at the end of the lap, and he's turned in and not had the rear grip in that Ferrari. He's caught it very nicely. There is a little bit of runoff that you can use. There are on quite a few of the corners around here, but it doesn't keep you safe from the barriers on the exits if you properly lose control. So well saved from Hamilton on his opening lap. Gasly, quite a meaty lockup from him at the end of his opener, down at the final corner, turn 27. It's easy to attack too much, especially early on. You can brake, carry a bit of entry speed.
The drinks is leaking better than last week, but I think it's leaking in my helmet.
Copy.
It's Piastri in conversation about his drink.
But he was reminded to drink, wasn't he, in the Bahrain Grand Prix? And he said, I would if it was working. It's still not working.
This talk about drink, so that was really interesting, the Bahrain Grand Prix, where he was reminded about the drink. Don't forget to drink. We've heard that before with Kimi Räikkönen back in the Ferrari days. I've got a suspicion that McLaren have relocated the driver's drinks bottle. It's about 2 litres, about 2 kilos of weight that usually used to sit behind the driver's seat in the McLaren. Red Bull notably put that driver's drink system, the bottle essentially, where that weight is, in the tip of the nose of the car. So if the driver drinks quite a lot of fluid during the race, he's essentially moving the weight distribution ever so slightly rearward during a Grand Prix as the car lightens up. Why does that matter? Well, weight distribution in Formula 1 is strictly limited. That is in the regulations. You can only about a 10 kilo window of freedom front to rear. So if you've got your drink system located somewhere clever and the driver drinks some fluid, then you can adjust your weight distribution during the Grand Prix. Sounds ridiculous. It's exactly what Red Bull are doing, and I wonder if McLaren are doing that as well. I'm going to go and have a look at some photos and see if I can see the driver's drink connector anywhere at the front of the car.
Gasly's going up to P3. We've got Max Verstappen in second. We were on board with him a few moments ago. Lando Norris is the championship leader and fastest driver. Medium tyre for our most recent winner in the form of his career. And by the way, it's a pretty special career. Champion of Formula 3, Formula 2, and aiming to be the champion of Formula 1 by the end of this year. Piastri slots in a 10th behind his teammate with 10 minutes to go. So we've got Sam Collins, Jolyon Palmer. I'm Alex Jakes. We've got Alex Brundle down in the pit lane. We've also got Laura Winter watching on from the back of the Haas garage. That is our lineup, and there we go, as if by magic. She can't hear us, that was very subtle from Winter. Apparently she said, don't say anything mean. Like we would in commentary. Don't be ridiculous. It's a very glass half full combox, I'll have you know. We're very focused.
I don't know why she can't hear us, because I know that the Haas team listen to us on the pit wall in some areas, as Ferrari do in the garage. So I am kind of wondering why Laura's not being given the opportunity to listen in to us.
Lance Stroll has gone up to 10th. Did they just tell you that to get you to go away, Sam, once upon a time when you were asking
to be nice?
Russell's gone quickest. Sam asking a technical question and being told that. No, that is true. I take that back. And we appreciate whoever's listening. Array of teams have a choice down there in the pit lane. Charles Leclerc is the driver that we're on board with. Ferrari were happy with their floor upgrade 1 week ago. Didn't give them a silver bullet in terms of pace, but they hope it's going to give them a wider setup window. And we hear that so often with modern Formula One teams, that the area of performance is restricted to a certain configuration of settings when it comes to setting up these cars. Over the line comes Charles Leclerc, good enough for P6 right now, early stages.
Didn't look nice through the final corner there. Got wide of the apex, had a small amount of oversteer on the way as he turned in.
Lock-up central for Ollie Behrman. It is one of his favourite circuits around the calendar, but no purchase down into the first turn.
Did he brush the wall, or he got very close to it as he locked up and therefore couldn't turn? It certainly looked tight for Behrman and caught himself out there on a hard tyre, the white wall. Almost everyone else is on the medium. 3 drivers are on the hards, the 2 Haas cars, and Carlos Sainz starts on the hard. Let's have a look again at Behrman. He's pointing to the wall. Yeah, he does.
Yeah. A brush of it. So
got away with that. Is it 4 wheels locked up there? I think it is momentarily. So he's slewed more sideways as the rears have actually locked as well. The fronts have completely locked.
I don't know what happened there.
it was a weekend of contrast for Ollie Behrman, who had a wonderful charge through the field, up 10 places last week, but he was last on the grid with locking problems, not understanding the performance he'd get from the brakes. And there is his dad, David Behrman, who was wishing him congratulations on his point on the team radio after the race, after a charging drive through, a 3rd Grand Prix point scoring finish of the season for his boy, who is celebrating a year since his Super Sub appearance for Ferrari. Former Ferrari driver Fernando Alonso, which way are we going to go, Kimi? He peels off the racing line, gets out of the way of the 2-time champion, who underlined yesterday when Max Verstappen was being linked to the Aston Martin team that he has a contract for next year. So Alonso pointing that out, he's got a contract for next season, and that either means you're going to have to pay him an absolute wedge to become an Aston Martin ambassador, or he's going to be behind the wheel.
Yeah, but there are 2 cars at Aston Martin, so it doesn't necessarily, all the rumours that Max might go there is not necessarily at Fernando's expense. He is right, he has a contract for next season. We've got another lock-up, and I think that whatever car that is has managed to keep it on the road. Was it the Sauber ahead of Esteban Ocon there as Fernando comes out of the final corner, blasts towards the line. Nice slipstream from him, and he jumps up to 7th place. No points for Fernando Alonso yet this season.
I think that might be a factor in it. Aston Martin, if you're Max Verstappen, you look at Aston Martin next year, you've got Adrian Newey, you've got Honda power units, they've got a big new shiny wind tunnel and massively upgraded facility. We already heard about it. The new Red Bull wind tunnel is not going to be ready until 2027, and that's going to really have an impact on the car development. They're not really going to see the benefit from that really until 2028, whereas Aston Martin's new wind tunnel is working now.
Yeah, online now. That's something that's happened this year. There's the lock-up for Jack Doohan into the final corner. Wasn't the only one out there.
Well, Gasly was the other one that had a big lock. So both Alpines have now had this sort of lock-up. He's braking and turning. I think he just tries to coax the car into an early apex. Maybe caught out by the car ahead.
I didn't know what the Aston was doing in the last corner. That's why I locked up. Sorry.
Yeah, copy, mate. I think you just a bit in the way there for you.
Yeah, so the Aston, I think, was trying to let him through and get the nice slipstream coming out of the final corner. That was then Bortoletto at the end of his lap as well.
That's the one we cut to the smoke of.
Yeah, so that made sense because he was just in front of Fernando across the line. George Russell fastest in the middle sector on this lap and is about to jump up the order, is he?
He's indeed by 0.3 of a second. Fastest time so far on the medium tyre for George Russell.
So a couple of fruity laps in the first 15 minutes. Firstly, Sainz, obviously on the hard tyre there in the Williams, means business on a track that he didn't race on last year. Was out with his appendicitis, but he has kicked off this practice really well, and he was a driver that was on much better form last week. No points for him in the Grand Prix in Bahrain, but I feel like his performance merited them, and obviously had the contact with Tsunoda, and that put the hole in his side pod, so very decent. The other one is Yuki Tsunoda, who's off to a decent start this weekend as well. Verstappen's just crossed the line to put another 4/10 between himself and his teammate, but that's another lap for Max. Yuki straight up into the top 6, looking comfortable.
Yeah, he was 9th in Bahrain to score his first Grand Prix points for Red Bull.
McLaren very definitely
I touched the wall a little bit on the right-hand side. Very small, but just check.
That probably explains what I was about to say. McLaren very definitely didn't... Oh no, it's on Lando's car. McLaren very definitely don't want us to have a look at what's going on in the garage down there in the pit lane. And I'm just wondering whether we can send an Alex Brundle in that direction.
Go on then, Sam Collins. Your wish is our command.
Hello there, gentlemen. Yeah, I've managed to make it down here to McLaren, where Oscar Piastri mentions that he touched the wall. Looks like it was right rear. There's a lot of investigation going on around the right rear hub. No obvious damage to the floor on the right side, but at this stage of free practice, they're obviously going to want to bring it in and check it out. A bit of a routine check, but a vision of things to come, isn't it? Always a factor throughout this weekend. Keeping the cars in one bit and making sure you have optimum performance, not only through the early stages of qualifying, but all the way through the qualifying session and into the race. So no harm done so far for Oscar Piastri. Bit of a nudge on the wall, but they'll be wanting to have a look at that and get it back out there.
Thank you, AB. Very on brand, isn't it? Wearing that green polo.
National colours for the day. And Aston Martin colours as well. Which one's more on brand? Aston Martin, we were talking about, Sam. And the fact that their wind tunnels come online. Obviously, they've signed Adrian Newey. And so that's why the Max Verstappen chat is flying around, particularly when Max had an underwhelming weekend, as he did in Bahrain. So, by the way, did Aston Martin. They were miserable last time out. And I just feel like Adrian Newey's not signed to that team to not be trying to win and not have world champion drivers in the team. Obviously, he has Fernando, but Fernando is in his mid-40s. He's certainly, he's got another year in his contract till next year, but I feel like if you're Adrian Newey, you've designed a host of record-breaking Formula One cars, won countless championships. You need the driver to do the job. And obviously, Lance Stroll's not going to be a champion. So how is Fernando going to be that guy in his mid-40s? I don't know. And that's why I think the Verstappen to Aston Martin rumours are around. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if you're Adrian Newey, you've worked with him, you've won 4 titles with him, you're certainly going to be pushing for that driver in the car.
I think it actually is going to happen, but I didn't think it was going to happen until 2027. I thought Max would probably see how the Ford power unit was going to be in the back of next year's Red Bull, see how that car was, and then decide where he was going to go. But these rumours have started quite early. And the other factor that we haven't really discussed much is Honda. Honda have said quite publicly that they have a say, or at least an influence, on the Aston Martin driver lineup for next year. And it just makes you wonder, with some of those comments Fernando Alonso made in the pre-show to this session, and we know Honda love Max Verstappen, I just wonder, do they want to put maybe Yuki Tsunoda, but definitely Max Verstappen in that green Aston Martin next year?
We'll pick it up in just a second. Just want to keep everyone updated on that. Liam Lawson failing to follow the race director's instructions has been noted. That can happen a couple of places when you rejoin, or it can be the painted tarmac between the pit lane and the main circuit. That's not all 4 wheels over the white line, that's any part of the tyre over the white line, and you will be pinged by race control. They've all been warned about that.
The right-hander of turn 6, as you then get into that real roller coaster feel of this circuit in that first sector.
Yeah, the end of the first sector is really, really tight, and it's high speed, it's blind, it's one of the blindest parts of the circuit, so you've got to be really keeping your eyes up, looking ahead. As we go into turn 13, really heavy banking. In the F1 Academy car, it was actually so steep that you had to keep it really tight, as it was quite a lot of power that was needed to go up the hill. But a really exciting couple of corners, and in turn 17, really important to maximise the exit, as it's a really long straight heading to turn 22. I mean, between turn 17 and 22, there's a lot in between, but they're all flat-out corners into the braking zone of turn 22, which is really bumpy actually. There's always a big tailwind, so we normally see drivers struggling in turn 22. It's quite a high-risk, high-reward kind of corner.
You just see Tsunoda hurtling out of 17, and you're thinking, how are you keeping that out of the wall? But already now, we're at the final corner. The left-hander, Tsunoda swings back in on himself. Tidy-ish lap from the Japanese driver. He's up on his personal best. Let's see what he can do to the line, and he puts himself up in fourth. Half a second adrift of George Russell, but he's behind his teammate Verstappen, who is third. So the two Red Bulls, third and fourth. And Andrew, after last week in Bahrain, is it red alert for Red Bull right now? Are they in serious trouble of losing Max Verstappen if they cannot bounce back convincingly this weekend and going forward in general?
Well, it's the $1 million question, isn't it? Or perhaps the $75 million question, given his salary.
Let me check my pockets.
Yeah, so... Look, I don't know. Nobody knows. But, you know, Helmut Marko didn't say. Here's some radio from Sainz.
I'm actually very happy with the car in high speed. Feels a lot more alive.
Okay, so Sainz is happy with the car in the high-speed corners, which is good news around Saudi because there's a lot of them. Yeah, Helmut Marko, it's all triggered by Helmut Marko saying there was great concern about Verstappen's future at Red Bull. And he didn't say that by accident. The fact is that the reality is that Verstappen's got a contract till the end of 28 with Red Bull, but it's got performance clauses in it, which I can say with absolute confidence because Helmut Marko told the BBC about them a few weeks ago. He didn't say what the detail was, but he said they were there. So that stopped Christian Horner denying it, at least. And so what next is the question. I don't know the exact terminology of those clauses, but I believe that they basically say he needs to have a winning car. And of course, if Max Verstappen stopped winning, then you can basically say the car's not a winning car. So he's free to leave if he wants. The question is, does he want? Yesterday, he did a sort of masterclass of non-denial denial. In the sense that he sort of made it seem like he wasn't thinking about it by saying he wasn't thinking about it, and made it seem like it wasn't a possibility, I should say, by saying he wasn't thinking about it, telling David Croft from Sky that he should concentrate on the commentating, for example, and then he wouldn't have to worry about it when he asked him a question about it. But he didn't actually say no, and actually Max has become quite the master in public speaking in the last couple of years as controversy after controversy, frankly, has unfolded around Red Bull, and he's found a way to make his feelings clear in most cases without actually saying anything that upset anybody, which during the Christian Horner sexual harassment saga last season was quite some achievement, actually. So in this case, he's basically just batted the questions away. So we don't know whether he wants to, and we don't know whether there's going to be a place for him to go. So the obvious place that people talk about is Mercedes, because Toto Wolff was so transparent about courting Verstappen last year. But does Toto Wolff want Max Verstappen still? You know, you would say, of course he does. But James Vowles, the Williams team principal, was saying that Max does come with some downsides this morning. Now, I think what he meant by that, because he didn't elucidate, was basically
75 million downsides.
75 million as a starting point, yeah. But also the team needs to focus very much on him to the detriment of the second driver, not least because he has such a particular singular driving style, which again we can get into in a minute. He has, as we all know now, he likes a very sharp front end, and he's able to deal with the rear. Not a lot of drivers are comfortable with that, at least not to the extent of Max, although every driver doesn't like understeer, but it's a question of what they perceive as understeer and oversteer sometimes. Of course, Ferrari would also be an option for him, but they have two drivers under contract next year as well. And then, of course, Aston Martin is the next obvious possibility. But again, Fernando Alonso has a contract there. So I think at the moment, as I understand it, Harry, the Verstappens, that's Max and Jos, his father, and their collective manager, Raymond Vermeulen, they're very much in a sort of, let's just sit back and let the season develop for a while mindset, and then we'll take a view when we have a bit more of a sense of where things are. What's difficult for them, I think, going into next year and making a big decision, because obviously trying to get out of that Red Bull contract, even if there's a performance clause, will be a big decision, and it won't be easy, is who's going to be quick next year. You just don't know, because it's a brand new engine and a brand new set of chassis rules. Who knows who's going to be quick? Everybody's saying the Mercedes engine's going to be the best engine, and in Formula One these things tend to be true, but we just don't know, and they don't know either.
That is the voice of the BBC's F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson. If you're just joining us, which I think most of you will be, apologies now, because we've just been informed there was some technical gremlins. You've missed the best 20 minutes of broadcasting we've ever done, and Andrew Benson has been on top form. He's alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, but you've also missed the golden 25 minutes now, because I'm joined by reigning F1 Academy champion Abby Pulling. And Abby, we're enjoying this session so far. A track that you've raced at, you've won at here before. It's fast, it's furious, it's ferocious, and right now it's George Russell who's the quickest driver out there.
Yeah, gosh, I got a bit of a deja vu now. It is an incredible circuit, the Jeddah Corniche circuit, and it's got its own unique set of challenges. It's really tight. It's threading a needle, as you want to put it, and the driver's struggling a little bit with the track evolution. There's quite a lot of dust that's got to be moved. The track's evolving, lots of lockups we've seen, but all very exciting.
Yeah, not a lot has happened apart from a couple of lockups. George Russell is the quickest driver. It's 33 minutes and 50, 49, 48, 47 seconds remaining of this session. So it's Russell quickest with a 1:29.6. Everybody really headed out on the medium tyre to begin with, bar Carlos Sainz, who went straight out on the hard tyre. He's now out there on the soft. Lando Norris is currently second, about 3/10 adrift of George Russell. Then it's Verstappen in third ahead of teammate Tsunoda. Pierre Gasly rounds out the top 5. Piastri now on to the soft tyre. He's on an outlap at the moment, is currently 6th ahead of Carlos Sainz. Then it's Albon, Doohan, Antonelli the top 10. Ferrari's Charles Leclerc is 11th ahead of Fernando Alonso. Then comes Lewis Hamilton. Liam Lawson is 14th, with Nico Hülkenberg rounding out the top 15. Isaac Hadjar is 16th ahead of Stroll. Ocon, Behrman and Bortoleto, the 20 drivers to make up the grid in this session. And having bolted on that soft tyre, Carlos Sainz, who sounds like he's feeling much more confident in that car, has just gone up into second spot. He's about 2.5 tenths away from George Russell. And I think if we look at Williams, Abby, and Sainz after last week in Bahrain, I think he left frustrated because he felt there was more on the table. Got into a few collisions, actually picked up a couple of penalty points for him as well, and had to retire the car. But I feel like in Bahrain was the first time, and I think the first time Carlos felt that he was able to start feeling more comfortable inside that Williams and gain the full amount that can be gained from their package. How have you seen Sainz's first few races with his new team?
Yeah, I think the most frustrating thing as a driver is when you know that there's margin on the table, but you're trying to figure out how to extract it. And it seems like he's getting more confident with the car, as we see him in P2 at the moment, obviously on the soft compound. And I'm looking forward to see how his dynamic with the team kind of evolves through the year. Obviously, he's got a really tough teammate to come up against with Alex Albon, who's been ingrained into the team for a while now, and had the time to adapt to the car. But it seems like he's making really great progress, and what he said is, jumping into a car, he said, to be within a tenth of my teammate, I'm quite happy. You can't expect me to be miles down the road to him first race on. So yeah, I think he'll be proving that throughout the year, getting closer and closer to Alex, potentially surpassing him at times. And
yeah, well, Carlos Sainz has fond memories and not so fond memories of this track for the Spaniard. Of course, it was a year ago that he had his appendix out here, and it was Ollie Behrman who made the step up. And what a 12 months it's been for the young British rookie. We knew he was coming in for a full-time season in Haas, and ended up getting a few early race outings with Ferrari, then a couple more with Haas. And actually, if you look at the best of the rest right now, Haas are 5th in the Constructors' Championship. They're enjoying their best start to a season since their first one. Impressive lineup, it seems, with Ocon and Behrman working well together. And if you think of the turnaround from Australia, where they were pretty much plumb last, it's been quite impressive to see Haas strike back with a couple of double points paying finishes. Yeah,
I think they're doing an incredible job, and even with their rookie driver, like you say, Oliver Behrman, he's managed to pick up some points and make the most out of the situations he's in. And I think they're just really kind of settling into their own, and when they've kind of had their competitors making mistakes or things going wrong, they've just picked up the pieces and scoring points here and there in the long run. It's really going to help them out, that consistency.
Yeah, at the moment, though, they are towards the back. Ocon 18th, Behrman 19th. Behrman's out there on an outlap at the moment on the hard side. This is the sound of Lando Norris on the soft, fastest of anybody in the first sector, out of the final corner, up through the gears, already into 8th gear as he will cross the line and rockets up to P1. 4 tenths clear of George Russell and over 4.5 tenths clear of his teammate Oscar Piastri, who has also been on the soft tyre. We are now seeing early soft tyre running here. Should be said that actually Pirelli have softened the step in terms of the tyre rubber that they've brought this weekend. We've got the C5 as the soft, the C4 as the medium, and the C3 as the hard, and that's to try and, I suppose, allow for more strategy choices. But I think this is what the drivers wanted as well as what we want. It gives us a little bit more unknowns because there's more options available.
Yeah, and I think it's predominantly been a one-stop race, the Jeddah Grand Prix. I think it was only really Valtteri Bottas a couple of years ago who opted for the two-stop, and it makes for better racing when there's two pit stops in. It makes things more variable, and you can try different strategies. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if that kind of changes kind of the long run pace and where people opt to go, and I think it will make the race that much more exciting. But at this stage in testing in FP1 with the dusty track, probably see a bit more graining as well, a bit more of a performance drop off with that softer compound.
Yeah, as Russell on that soft compound goes second, nearly just over 3.5 tenths away from Lando Norris. The two Ferraris out there on the soft tyre as well. Leclerc has just gone up into 4th spot, about half a second adrift. Meanwhile, Hamilton a bit further back, 9 tenths of a second, down in 8th place for the 7-time champion.
Now, we've just seen an interesting little pattern of performance there. Norris gained a lot of time on the soft tyre, and so did Charles Leclerc. But Russell, Piastri and Verstappen only gained a sort of tenth or two each. Now, that might suggest, I don't know for sure, but it might suggest that the soft is, because it's the softest compound. We've seen Pierre Gasly brushing the wall there. Is that on the entry to 22, Abby?
Yeah, 22. Yeah, very bumpy there.
Got my numbers, he pressed there. I got my numbers right this time. That might suggest that the soft is a tricky tyre to get to work over one lap, or it might suggest that just all three of them made mistakes on that one lap that they were trying. I don't know, but it's one to keep an eye on because it's quite possible that the soft will be on the edge over one lap. It's such a fast circuit with some really quick corners around it.
God, that was tight for Pierre Gasly, currently 10th in the Alpine, though, down in 12th. Yuki Tsunoda is out there on the soft tyre, trying to improve his pace. He's down in 9th at the moment, making his way through turn 17. Let's hear from his teammate.
Still my first sector, I just gone through the car.
So again, it's Max Verstappen just feeding back. The front end is not where he wants that Red Bull to be when it comes to turning in, particularly in that first sector. Meanwhile, his teammate coming through the fastest section of this track, arcing left through 25 and 26. Sparks flying from the underside of that Red Bull, hits the brakes and turn in. Try not to lock a wheel. Nice and tidy. Get as close as you dare to the wall on the right-hand side as you exit the final corner. Wait for the DRS line. The rear wing flies open for Tsunoda, and he improves up to 6th position for the Japanese driver, just behind his teammate Max Verstappen, about a 10th between the two drivers at the moment.
I always think seeing that Red Bull livery going around the last corner, it always makes me think back to qualifying a couple of years ago, where that infamous Max Verstappen lap.
Was that the best lap that never happened? The best pole lap that never actually happened?
Yeah, it was 21. It was the middle of that title fight between Verstappen and Hamilton. It was one of those moments where, in fact, it was the first time that Fernando Alonso was watching with his mouth agape Max Verstappen do a qualifying lap that he couldn't quite believe he was seeing. In that case, he didn't quite pull it off, unlike Suzuka 2 weeks ago where he really did. And the same thing happened with Alonso in the TV pen. There's a bit of a love affair there between Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen, it has to be said. Alex Albon's just missed one of the quicker chicanes there in his Williams on his soft tyre run.
Wasn't Alonso asked in the conference in the build-up this weekend if he would like Verstappen as a teammate?
He said yes, but it's unlikely to happen. Very unlikely.
Well, because if anyone makes way, it will be Alonso.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, at the moment,
I mean, look, if you were Verstappen, it would be a very big, even though Adrian Newey's gone there, it will be a very big call to go to Aston Martin for next year, because I mean, I don't doubt that Adrian Newey will make that team competitive, but I think we can see from their performance so far this year that even with Adrian Newey involved there, they've got a long way to go before they're operating at the level of an absolute top team.
100th race in Formula One this weekend for Aston Martin, and if you look at Fernando Alonso had a brilliant run here a couple of years ago in the Aston, qualified on the front row, took the lead going down into turn 1 and managed to end up on the podium come the end of that race. But it's been a massive decline for not just Alonso but for both cars. Stroll as well hasn't been able to perform. We know there's a deficit there anyway, but when you look at both of them falling down the order, it's quite dramatic stuff for the two Aston Martins.
I think the concern for them this year is that they came into the year hoping, they didn't expect miracles in terms of performance, but what they were hoping was that they would answer some of the questions that they had about their car from last year, which was that or for the last 2 years actually, it was a repeating pattern that they put development on the car that they thought would do something from their simulation tools, at least that's what it was telling them, and it didn't perform in that way on the car. It introduced instability, or the performance wasn't there that they expected, or even in the way that they expected either. So they were hoping that they'd come into this year, make some performance steps, but also more importantly, sort of prove out, if you like, their simulation techniques, so that they could be confident in going into designing the new car under the new rules for next year. So far, that hasn't happened. You know, they've made the car a bit more predictable, and it's obviously faster than last year's car, but it's not made as much progress as everybody else. And if anything, I think they've probably slipped back even more this year than they were. Bahrain last weekend, they were basically the slowest car, judging by the drivers' finishing positions. So that's what I meant by it will be a big call for Verstappen to go there, even with Newey. Typically, you want Newey as your designer if you're going to be going into a new set of regulations, because he's been so good at nailing them first off. But and it might be that he manages to do that, but he can't do it completely on his own. They still need, this is still the 21st century. You do still need to prove out development within the car, and also then keep the development going afterwards. So still lots of questions to be answered by that team.
But there's something to be said though, Aston Martin having to do a lot of work. Of course, they'll have the Honda power unit in the back of that car as they become the works outfit really for Honda, the exclusive supplier, a new gearbox to go with that as well. So they're really having to design everything from scratch once more with no kind of overhangs from a previous Mercedes power unit, which is the one they currently run at the moment. So they're biting off a lot, Aston Martin, and let's see what Adrian Newey can make happen for 2026. Pierre Gasly has just gone to the top of the times, by the way, on the soft tyre. 7,000ths of a second clear of Lando Norris. It's 22 minutes and 13 13 seconds remaining. Charles Leclerc through turn 25, looking rapid, fastest of anybody in the middle sector is the Monegasque. He's never been out-qualified by a teammate here so far, and at the moment he's having a strong run against Lewis Hamilton, his teammate, who Hamilton has been openly talkative about his struggles in qualifying, whilst his teammate rockets up to third in the timing tower, less than a tenth adrift of Gasly with a good lap time. Teammate Hamilton currently down in 12th at the moment, and it was good stuff for Alpine and Pierre Gasly in Bahrain. Avi managed to get points on the board for the first time. I mean, it shows a turnaround again. We talk about Aston Martin, a big fall from grace. In Bahrain, last year, Alpine were plumb last, and now to see Gasly up there, a huge boost. How does that help a team going forward for the rest of the season, and certainly the next weekend racing here?
I mean, Gasly is a hugely experienced driver, and he brings so much to the team, and he is helping drive it forwards, and I think he manages to get the most out of that car as often as possible. And as we saw last weekend, he did an incredible job bringing a car kind of probably ahead of where it maybe should have been, to be honest. And I think that's the key thing. It's a development race, and Alpine are trying to be the best in that, and they've made some steps from last year, but still more to come, as we see Kimi Antonelli brushing the wall of the last corner. I don't think you could fit a 5 pence between that.
You'd be doing well, Antonelli. Fine margins for the Italian rookie out of the final corner. He's currently 11th fastest, and we're just getting a couple of replays through. Lando Norris struggling to get his car turned in through the first corner, actually hits the apex, and then that rear just becomes too unstable, and he has to bail out of it, Abby.
Yeah, really struggling with the tyre overheating there, I think, a little bit. The rear end just stepping around on that turn in, and yeah, it didn't seem happy at all. And as we're watching Tsunoda going green, so he's on for a push lap, going into the final sector. Can he keep it all together? Can he not lock up that front left tyre that we've been seeing so many people do? No, he's got it all collected.
Has a little wiggle on the rear end as he comes out of the final corner, does Yuki Tsunoda, who hasn't ever finished in the points here in Saudi Arabia in his previous attempts with the Racing Bulls iteration and their various names over the last couple of years. But his points in Bahrain, that's the first time Verstappen's teammate has scored any points since Las Vegas in 2024. But he's still coming into this weekend saying he doesn't understand even half of the Red Bull car yet, just again reiterating how tricky that is to drive. On the flip side, if you look at somebody like George Russell in the Mercedes, who is really having the season of his life so far, it's been a fantastic start for him. The only driver to finish in the top 5 at every race so far. Podiums as well, achieving them in the first round in Australia, and third, got it again in China, not in Japan, but then bounced back with a fantastic drive last week in Bahrain. It feels like he's really, not that we ever doubted George Russell, but in the wake of Lewis Hamilton's departure, it feels like he's really stepped into that leadership role.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say the exact same thing. After Lewis left, he was almost a little bit in Lewis's shadow, to be honest. He never really got to spread his legs and show the team what he was capable of, and he's, as you said, stood into the role of leading that team and really, you know, extracting the most and being consistent. At the end of the day, what makes good champions and championships is being consistent.
It certainly does. 80 minutes and 10, 9, 8 seconds remain of free practice.
I just want to pick you up on your statistic, Harry, while everyone's giggling. You just said George Russell's the only driver to finish in the top 5 every race this year. Lando Norris first, second, third.
Oh, outside of the top 2. Does that work? Maybe I was given a bit of dud information there.
I think maybe maybe Statman was looking at the sprint in China as well.
Hey, we'll go with the
we'll
go with the podium run on that one. Either way, it's been a superb start of the year for George Russell.
Just repeating one of the most famous Coleman balls, hasn't she?
17 and a half minutes remain of free practice 1. It's Pierre Gasly who is out in front, 7 thousandths of a second clear of Lando Norris. Then it's Charles Leclerc in third. Oscar Piastri's fourth, Alex Albon the top 5. George Russell is 6th, ahead of Sainz. Then it's Verstappen and Tsunoda, with Lewis Hamilton rounding out the top 10. Hulkenberg is 11th, Kimi Antonelli is 12th, Alonso 13th, Doohan, Stroll the top 15, Behrman 16th ahead of Bortoletto. Liam Lawson is 18th ahead of Esteban Ocon, and Isaac Hadjar, who just looked like he was having a bit of a nap there, Abby, didn't he, in his car, 20th and last.
Yeah, he looks really comfortable. He's having a bit of a snooze ready for his next outing. With the 16 minutes to go, getting ready for probably a soft tyre run, as he's one of the only ones that's not ran on the soft compound, him and Liam Lawson, his teammate.
Yeah, the 2 Racing Bulls running a little bit out of sequence with the rest of the field's run plan. It seems everybody else, as you say, Abby, already been out there on the soft, if not out there at the moment. Jack Doohan making his way through the quick left-right of 7 and 8. Then it curves round to the right, turn 9. Left again through 10. Slight hill through 11 over the crest of the curb. Spits you out through 13, or towards 13. Left-hander, banked corner as well. 12% gradient on that corner. To give you an idea of that, slightly more than what you'd see at Indianapolis, but slightly less than what we get in Zandvoort, for instance. And before you know it, it's through the right-hander of 16. Then comes so close on the exit of turn 17 to the wall, but threading the needle is Jack Doohan, the Australian rookie, who looked like he had a really strong running last time out in Bahrain. Best ever qualifying, but was just outside of the top 10 whilst his teammate went through to Q3, and was in the points for a long time, but then just chewed up his tyres and got absolutely taken for in the final few laps, did Doohan. But overall, for a driver that's had so much pressure put on it, even before he turned a wheel, Abby, with Franco Colapinto waiting in the wings. How have you rated Jack Doohan's first foray this season in that Alpine car?
I think Jack's doing everything he needs to do and kind of getting out performance, improving throughout the year, although we're not too far into it so far, but he's proving that he deserves a bit more time to keep developing, keep moving forward. And yeah, as you say, he had quite a lot of pressure on him, having Franco waiting in the wings, and even the Doohan name is so iconic, and he really wants to live up to what his dad's done, of course. So I think letting him kind of see out the season will be the best possibility for him to really show the team what he's made of.
Yeah, Mick Doohan, of course, his father, who actually seems like he goes to pretty much every race at the moment. The motorcycle legend, 5-time 500cc champion. So doing the business on two wheels, whilst his son hoping to achieve great things on four wheels. Meanwhile, the Williams drivers look like they're having a good run in FP1 so far. Carlos Sainz just coming into the pits. He's 7th after another soft tyre run. Alex Albon up there, though, in the top 5 as well. So we get another look at Pierre Gasly coming out of turn 2 in the short run down through the left-hand flick of 3 into the braking zone. Left-hander comes at you next, and then just doesn't like the way that Alpine is handling, loses the rear end and has a big flick of the steering wheel, has to get out of it, cuts the corner and rejoins the circuit and takes a bit of curb and dust for good measure, does the Frenchman in the Alpine, but he lives to fight another day, and he is currently the fastest driver out on track. Of course, Alpine suffering. Oh, his signs first.
The Ferrari. Oh, it's so dangerous. You cannot let me by there. Please, someone tell the Ferrari not to let by people there. It's so dangerous.
Carlos Sainz having a near miss coming through the first sector. That's always the tricky thing. You want to let, it's all well and good a driver being told to let through a faster car by, but you've also got to pick your moments when to do it right, Abby, because you can pick the wrong moment and send a car out wide and off the racing line, and they lose all grip and into the wall.
Definitely, especially that combination of 5 all the way to 9. It is really tight there, and it is almost flat out in a high gear, and yeah, if it goes wrong, there's no really anywhere to bail out. I think it's the one place on the track where there is no runoff, and it can go really wrong.
This is Esteban Ocon. The sound you're hearing right now, up into 8th gear as he hurdles just up to 320 kilometers an hour before he hits the brakes into the final corner and hits that DRS line. The rear wing flap flies open. Esteban Ocon, who had a rather wonderful result as well for the Haas team last time around, managing to hold on to 9th place in the Drivers' Championship with more points gained for the Frenchman in 8th spot at the end of Bahrain, which was a brilliant run from him. We didn't see it at the time, but he had the undercut of all undercuts, did Esteban Ocon, pitting on lap 8 and made up a huge amount of positions. It was a great strategy call from the Haas team, who have been enjoying a great run. And do you think this was what Esteban Ocon needed, almost a new lease of life, leaving Alpine and going to a team like Haas, where they're smaller? It's not a big, I suppose Alpine aren't going to be an engine manufacturer anymore, but Haas are a customer team. They take a lot of their parts from Ferrari. They are sort of the plucky midfielders. Do you think he fits in quite well there as a character? It
does seem like he, like you say, he's slotted in really well and fits in with the team and is working really well with them. And it's really nice to see as Esteban passing by him in the paddock last year was always so supportive of myself. So to see him having a successful time there is really nice. And as you say, I think his feedback is obviously really valuable to what the team has, and it's what they've needed, and they're making that step obviously from last year to this year. They're 5th in the constructors, and it seems to be working.
I have to say, I listened to the podcast that F1 do called Beyond the Grid with Tom Clarkson, who does all the press conferences for Formula One. He was chatting with Esteban Ocon about his career, what he's been up to, new life at Haas, and it's actually a really lovely chat. And I feel like Ocon, maybe a bit like Verstappen, is really painted with the villain brush sometimes. But as a driver, when you're on the track, again, coming back to our earlier discussion, you've got to be in it for yourself. But when you're off the track, Verstappen and Esteban Ocon are actually some of the loveliest drivers you'll meet on the grid.
No, definitely. I mean, yeah, on the circuit you have to get your elbows out, and there's been some, scrapes and bumps in the past, but that's him trying to be assertive and show that he, deserves to be there. And off track, he's the most loveliest person, one of the drivers that kind of spent the most time with me last year, and looking kind of forward to this year. I'm excited to see what else he can do with the team, and hopefully they can keep developing and moving forward.
9 minutes and 53, 52, 51, 50 seconds remain of free practice one. Of course, a little bit unrepresentative because we're running in the heat of the day with the sun overhead. But right now, it's Pierre Gasly with a really good lap on the soft tyre. 7/1000ths of a second clear out in front ahead of Lando Norris. And it's Charles Leclerc third. Piastri and Albon, the top 5. Russell, Sainz, Hamilton, Verstappen and Tsunoda make up the top 10. Hulkenberg is 11th ahead of Antonelli. And it's Alonso, Doohan and Stroll, the top 15. The two Hasses of Behrman and Ocon are 16th and 17th ahead of Bortoletto. And the two Racing Bulls, who are now out there on the soft tyre, a bit delayed to the softest rubber, are Lawson and Hadjar. But they're out there now, both on outlap, so let's see what they can bring to the party after a bit of a rough run last time out in Bahrain, having had a really good start to the season, but just haven't really been able to pick up the points they wanted.
Right, very loose in high speed, especially.
That's Verstappen saying, I'm very loose in the high speed, especially. Now, Abby, I'm imagining that's not great for a track like this.
No, around a circuit like this, it's high risk, high reward, and as a driver you want the most confidence as possible, and with that you want a car that would do what you expect it to do, and if it's we know what Verstappen's like. He really likes a car that's on its nose, but around a circuit like this it can go wrong very, very quickly.
I should mention there are some upgrades being brought this weekend as well. A lot of circuit performance updates, but some actually bringing some new bits. The McLaren's new diffuser and rear corner for them, along with Ferrari, new rear wing and beam wing for them, off the back of bringing upgrades last week as well, which Charles Leclerc is hoping they'll be able to exploit further around a track like Jeddah. Red Bull have brought a beam wing and also some changes to their engine cover to aid some reliability problems they've been having, or concerns with them. And also Sauber have brought a few things to the floor of their car as they try and search for more points. Only 1 point paying position for them so far, and in the first race with Nico Hulkenberg holding on to 7th spot after a really chaotic run. They are, though, now that Alpine have got off the board, back to being last of the Sauber team as they prepare to morph into Audi next year. And of course we'll have another team join us on the grid as well, in the form of Cadillac. How excited are you about having another team on the grid, Abby? Two driver opportunities as well, but also more jobs, more fun and entertainment for us.
Well, exactly, and I think the big thing is that there's motorsport and Formula One, there's drivers that have been in it for quite a while now, although rightly so they deserve their position, but there's so many rookies that really want to show that they can get into Formula One and show what they're made of, and adding them extra to
Yeah, charging the pack now.
No, we don't need to charge the pack again. We do not need to charge the pack, please. Keep the pace for tires. Go race. We are happy where we are.
Whatever I want to get off, please. I know what I'm doing.
As Carlos Sainz tells his engineer what he wants to do.
Very Kimi Raikkonen, that, wasn't it?
No, very assertive, but yeah, them extra 2 positions on the grid provides more opportunity for newer drivers, which I think, is really exciting for the viewer.
Certainly is. Being rather tight-lipped, Graham Loudon, the team principal of the squad, when they come in on who might their drivers be. Maybe an American teamed up with an experienced driver. Could we see a Valtteri Bottas return, a Sergio Perez return? Would you think that would be the right cause to at least have one of their drivers as an experienced hand?
Definitely. I mean, it would be silly for them not to have an experienced driver either come back out of reserve driver duties or even a current driver that's looking to go elsewhere. It would be silly for them to not take that information from them and to have their insights. drivers that are experienced, they work with lots of different teams, they know the different philosophies within each team, and they can really apply that and move the Cadillac team forward quicker than obviously if a rookie was to join in.
Well, we will welcome them next year on the grids. Of course, a whole new regulation change as well for the current teams and drivers to get to grips with. Right, we've seen Liam Lawson put his soft tyre on the board in the Racing Bulls, and he pops up into 11th, just behind the two Red Bull cars, Tsunoda and Verstappen. Isaac Hadjar, we didn't see his soft run. He's about to get going again, although as I say that, he's making his way rather slowly through turns 1 and 2. So I think he was on a flying lap, and then I think he made a mistake in the middle sector and hasn't found the gap he wanted to. So we haven't quite seen what Hadjar has got at the moment. It's still Pierre Gasly, who, having put on that soft tyre, went fastest by 0.07 of a second. They've now switched on to the medium tyre, majority of the top 10, with the exception of Carlos Sainz, who is back on the hard tyre, which is where he ran at the start of the weekend, although I think actually he is on the soft tyre. My graphic is just wrong, so I'll track back on that one. But 4.5 minutes left, and Nico Hülkenberg is just about to come into the pits for the Sauber team. Of course, Hülkenberg disqualified at the end of Bahrain. Another one to be hit with the excessive wear on the plank on the underside of that Sauber. How do you think, Abby, a team like Sauber, who are, I think they've made gains from where they were last year, but the field is so tight, right, that a 10th can separate 4 positions now. But they're morphing into a big factory outfit when Audi come in next year, taking over the Sauber operation. And at the moment, I think a lot of people aren't feeling particularly optimistic about that.
They have been really struggling the past couple of years, and it doesn't seem like much has changed going into this year. They're still kind of struggling with that development battle behind the scenes. But going into 2026, I imagine that's their focus, that's their aim, to improve as much as possible and get on top of them new regulations.
As a bit of a lock-up there for the Mercedes of Antonelli coming through turn 1, just has to step the car out, still tries to turn it in but won't make the corner and has to cut the inside. Not much runoff here, but there is a little bit through that chicane that opens up the lap through turns 1 and 2 as at the Jeddah Corniche circuit, which is hosting the 5th edition of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix this weekend. On the waterfront here next to the Red Sea, can get a bit of sand blowing in if the wind direction picks up. We're running this a little later on in the year than we have done previously, in April now, with the higher temperatures expected. At the moment, air temperature 28, just north of 28 degrees, track temperature just under 44 degrees. Expect the air temperature to cool as we head into free practice 2 a little later on. The F1 Academy races, were they mainly in the daylight last year? Can you remember?
I have no balance. If I carry more speed through 9 and 10, I'm going to crash.
That was Alex Albon saying he's got no balance. If he carries more speed through that really tricky turn 9 and 10 sector, where it's just relentless in that middle sector, he'll crash. So Albon really trying to push the limits of what that Williams has got.
Yeah, F1 Academy, we actually had a mixture of when the sessions were, so majority of them were in the daytime, so it was the hottest part of the day. It was quite brutal, to be honest, but qualifying here was actually in the night time, and it was interesting to see how everything developed and changed.
Yeah, so how did it? What were the big differences? Obviously cooler temperatures, but how does that affect the car when you're driving it?
Look at entry, exit compromise, turn 13 max, back out the entry.
I can't. It's just, I have no balance, basically.
More balance problems for Max Verstappen, especially coming through that left-hander through turn 13, that banked corner.
For myself, the difference in the track condition, really, it went from 50-degree track temp to 25. It was a really big drop, and it just made it so you could eke out more performance as well. Actually, the engine as well, when it's cooler, it performs better, but then also also the tyre, it just doesn't overheat as much. The peak is just a bit stronger. The track, it gives you that extra grip because it's not overheating. Everything isn't overheating and kind of exhausted almost after doing an outlap. So yeah, it's really exciting actually driving under the floodlights. As a driver, it was one of my most memorable things from last year. I really enjoyed, especially through the streets here of the Saudi Arabian circuit. It was literally, you're so focused, it's a tunnel vision and everything's coming past you so quickly, and that was in the F1 Academy car, so I imagine it's even more intense and exaggerated in behind the wheel of these Formula 1 cars.
I think Gabriel Bortoleto was saying, stepping up from Formula 2, even that 14 seconds a lap quicker than an F2 car, and they are racing here as well. So even though the rookies stepping up have got experience here, they haven't got experience of going 14 seconds quicker.
It was weird under braking. I thought I pinned you on it. Oh, well, back off. Something's not feeling right.
That's George Russell. Something feels weird under braking, so he decided to back off.
I think at the start we also had Kimi Antonelli saying that he had something wrong with the braking. So it could be,
I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it could be just a generic Mercedes issue there.
Okay, well that is the checkered flag and the end of free practice 1 with Pierre Gasly in the Alpine topping the times on the soft tyre, a 1:29.239, 7 thousandths of a second clear from Lando Norris, who currently leads the Drivers' Championship coming into this round 5 of the 2025 Formula 1 season. Charles Leclerc is 3rd, Oscar Piastri 4th, Alex Albon the top 5 with George Russell, Carlos Sainz, Hamilton, Verstappen and Tsunoda rounding out the top 10. Then it's Liam Lawson in 11th, Nico Hülkenberg 12th ahead of Antonelli, Alonso, Hadjar the top 15. Jack Doohan was 16th ahead of Lance Stroll, Ollie Behrman 18th, Esteban Ocon 19th and Gabriel Bortoleto 20th and last as the cars make their way back round. A couple will do some practice starts on the start-finish grid. We will be back for a bit of FP2 running at about 5 to 6 this evening ahead of the session starting at 6 o'clock. You'll be able to join us on 5 Sports Extra on BBC Sounds and on your smart speaker, and if you're in ever any doubt, you can always get us on the BBC Sport website and app. My thanks to Andrew Benson, to Abby Pulling. We shall see you all in a few hours. It's Gasly on top at the end of FP1. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.